Tom Riley wiped grease from his hands with an old rag while staring at the phone on his workbench. The caller had hung up 5 minutes ago, but he still couldn't believe what he'd heard. A law firm in downtown Houston claimed his grandfather had left him property on the moon. The moon, as in Earth's actual satellite hanging in the sky above his garage. He picked up the phone and dialed the number again. A professional woman's voice answered after 2 rings. Davidson, Wells, and Associates. How may I help you? This is Tom Riley. Someone called me about an inheritance? I think there's been a mistake. Mr. Riley, yes. I have your file right here. Your grandfather, Edward Riley, passed away 3 weeks ago. According to his will, you inherit his lunar mining facility and all associated equipment. Tom sat down hard on his rolling stool. Ma'am, I think you have the wrong person. My grandfather died when I was 5, and he sure didn't own anything on the moon. I understand your confusion, Mr. Riley. However, our records show Edward Riley as your paternal grandfather. He established legal documentation for this property transfer in 1985, long before lunar mining became commercially viable. The deed is registered with both the International Space Authority and the Lunar Development Council. The lawyer continued, talking. But Tom's mind wandered to his mother's bitter words about his father's side of the family. She'd always said his grandfather was a dreamer who abandoned his family to chase impossible ideas. When Tom was young, she'd mentioned something about Eddie Riley claiming he was going to work in space, but Tom had assumed it was just another tall tale. Mr. Riley, are you still there? Yeah, I'm here. This is just a lot to process. What exactly am I supposed to do with property on the moon? The facility is fully operational and self-sustaining. However, there is a condition attached to your inheritance. You must report to the facility within 30 days to fulfill certain contractual obligations your grandfather established with an organization called the Stellar Repair Guild. Tom nearly dropped the phone. The what now? The Stellar Repair Guild. They have a legal agreement with your grandfather dating back 40 years. If you don't honor this contract, ownership of the facility reverts to their organization. After hanging up, Tom stared at the partially disassembled transmission sitting on his workbench. He'd been a mechanic his entire adult life, following his father's footsteps in the family garage. The work was honest and satisfying, but hardly the stuff of space adventures. The whole situation felt like an elaborate prank, except the legal documents arriving by courier 2 days later looked disturbingly authentic. The shuttle ride to Lunar City took 6 hours and cost more money than Tom made in 3 months. He'd sold his truck and borrowed against the garage to afford the ticket, gambling everything on what might be the biggest mistake of his life. The other passengers were corporate executives and research scientists, people who belonged in space. Tom felt out of place in his cleanest work shirt and borrowed suit jacket. Lunar City sprawled across the lunar surface like a collection of connected snow globes, each dome protecting a different district from the harsh vacuum outside. Tom's facility sat 20 kilometers away in the Sea of Tranquility, accessible only by rover across the gray dust plains. The coordinates matched his legal documents perfectly, but nothing prepared him for what he found. The complex rose from the lunar surface like something from a science fiction movie. 3 interconnected domes surrounded a central spire that reached toward the star-filled sky. Solar collectors and communication arrays sprouted from the structure like metallic flowers. Everything looked impossibly advanced compared to the industrial equipment Tom was used to working on. Inside the main dome, Tom's footsteps echoed through corridors lined with control panels and display screens showing data he couldn't begin to understand. The air tasted recycled but breathable, and artificial gravity kept his feet planted on the polished metal floors. Emergency lighting had activated automatically when he entered, revealing chambers filled with tools and equipment that seemed decades ahead of anything on Earth. In the central control room, Tom found a holographic projector waiting for him. A simple voice command brought his grandfather's image to life, and for the first time, Tom saw Edward Riley's face. The man looked exactly like Tom's father, but with wild gray hair and eyes that seemed to hold secrets. "Tommy, if you're watching this, it means I'm gone, and you've decided to come see what your crazy grandfather left you," the hologram said with a familiar smile. "I know your mother probably told you I was a fool who abandoned the family. Maybe she was right about the fool part, but I never abandoned anyone. I just saw an opportunity to do something amazing for humanity." The recording explained how Eddie Riley had become Earth's first interstellar mechanic. 40 years ago, an alien ship had suffered engine failure in Earth's outer solar system. While government officials debated first contact protocols, Eddie had somehow convinced the aliens to let him take a look at their broken drive system. His repair job had impressed them so much that they offered him a position with their repair organization. The thing is, Tommy, alien technology is incredibly advanced, but also incredibly fragile. They design everything to be perfect in theory, but they forget that the universe doesn't care about perfect theory. That's where humans come in. We have something they call intuitive repair sense. We can feel what's wrong with a machine even when their computers say everything is fine. The hologram paused, and Eddie's expression grew serious. But there's a catch. The Stellar Repair Guild operates on contracts, and mine is about to expire. If someone from the Riley family doesn't take over within 30 days of my death, they'll claim this facility and humanity loses its foothold in interstellar technology. I'm sorry to dump this on you, son, but you're the only family member with mechanical skills. Before Tom could fully process what he'd heard, a new voice spoke from behind him. He turned to see a being that looked like it was carved from living crystal, its faceted body reflecting the room's lights in rainbow patterns. "You must be Thomas Riley," the creature said in perfect English, its voice sounding like wind chimes. "I am Quill, representing the Stellar Repair Guild. Your grandfather spoke of you often during his final years. He believed you had inherited the family gift for impossible repairs." Tom stared at the alien, his mind struggling to accept what he was seeing. "This is all real, isn't it?" "Quite real, Mr. Riley, and quite urgent. We have 17 ships currently waiting for repairs that only a human mechanic can provide. Your grandfather's contract specified a 20-year commitment to serve as our chief percussive maintenance specialist. Are you prepared to honor this agreement?" Looking around the incredible facility his grandfather had built, thinking about the impossible opportunity being offered, Tom realized his quiet life as a small-town mechanic had just ended forever. The universe was much stranger and more wonderful than he'd ever imagined, and somehow his family had been part of it all along. "I guess I better learn fast," Tom said, surprising himself with his answer. "When do I start?" The emergency beacon started screaming at 3 in the morning, lunar time. Tom bolted upright in his grandfather's old quarters, still not used to waking up on the moon after 2 weeks of cramming alien technology manuals into his head. The beacon meant trouble, the kind that required immediate human intervention. Quill materialized in the doorway, the crystalline being's body pulsing with urgent orange light. "We have a situation, Mr. Riley. The Guild Dreadnought Hammer of Stars has suffered complete propulsion failure near the Jupiter trade routes. 3 different engineering teams have declared the problem unsolvable." Tom pulled on his work clothes, grabbing tools he was still learning to use. "How long has the ship been dead in space?" 72 hours. Commander Voss is requesting human assistance, though he seems less than enthusiastic about it. The repair. Shuttle launched from Luna Base 20 minutes later, with Tom strapped into a pilot seat designed for beings with entirely different body shapes. The flight to Jupiter took 6 hours at maximum acceleration, giving him time to review the technical specs of the ship he was supposed to fix. The Hammer of Stars was a monster, 3 kilometers long and packed with enough firepower to level a small moon. It also had the most complicated propulsion system Tom had ever seen. Commander Voss met them at the airlock, and Tom immediately understood Quill's comment about enthusiasm. The reptilian alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark green, scales that seemed to shift color with his mood. His yellow eyes regarded Tom with barely concealed disgust. "This is the human mechanic?" Voss asked, his voice carrying a hiss that made Tom think of angry snakes. "He looks like a child playing with tools he doesn't understand." "Commander Voss, may I present Thomas Riley, the newest member of our repair division," Quill said diplomatically. His grandfather was highly regarded throughout the guild. Voss led them through corridors filled with alien crew members, most of whom stopped to stare at Tom like he was some exotic creature. The engineering section occupied nearly a quarter of the ship, with multiple levels of control stations and diagnostic equipment that hummed with constant activity. 3 different alien engineers were hunched over displays, their various appendages manipulating controls with desperate precision. The lead engineer, a being that looked like an upright octopus made of metal, turned to address them. "Chief Engineer Rust reporting, Commander. All diagnostic systems show normal parameters, but the fusion drives refuse to initialize. The quantum field generators are receiving proper power flow, but something prevents ignition sequence completion." Tom examined the readouts, trying to make sense of data presented in ways human minds weren't designed to process. The aliens had built amazingly sophisticated systems, but they'd also made them incredibly complex. Every component had backups and safety protocols and diagnostic subroutines that seemed to analyze each other in endless loops. "Can I see the actual engines?" Tom asked. Commander Voss bristled. "The fusion chambers are sealed. No biological entity can survive exposure to the quantum field fluctuations. I don't need to go inside. I just want to look at them." The engine room was a cathedral of technology, with massive fusion chambers suspended in frameworks of exotic metals that seemed to bend space around them. Everything appeared perfect and pristine, exactly as the diagnostic computers reported. But Tom noticed something the aliens had missed. He knelt down next to one of the primary power conduits, pressing his ear against the metal housing. The aliens watched him with expressions ranging from confusion to horror as he moved from component to component, listening to mechanical sounds that their advanced sensors couldn't detect. "Your problem isn't with the engines," Tom announced after 20 minutes of this apparently primitive behavior. "It's with the safety systems." Chief Engineer Rust consulted his displays again. "All safety protocols show green status. No fault. Conditions detected." Tom pointed to a junction box that looked identical to dozens of others throughout the engine room. "That power relay is vibrating wrong. The connection is loose, but it's not loose enough to trigger your fault sensors. The safety system knows something isn't right, so it won't let the engines start, but it can't identify the specific problem." "Impossible," Commander Voss declared. "Our diagnostic systems monitor every component continuously. A loose connection would generate immediate fault alerts." "Your diagnostic systems are looking for big problems," Tom explained, pulling out tools that looked absurdly simple compared to the alien equipment. "They're not designed to catch small problems that might become big problems later. You've made everything so perfect that you can't handle imperfection." Tom opened the junction box and found exactly what he'd expected. The connection was solid enough to pass electrical current, but loose enough to create tiny vibrations that gradually degraded the signal quality. It was the kind of problem that would have shut down any Earth-based system within hours, but the alien technology had sophisticated enough error correction to work around it indefinitely, at least until the safety systems decided the degraded signal quality was too risky for fusion ignition. He tightened the connection with a standard wrench, probably the most primitive tool on the entire ship. The vibration stopped immediately. "Try starting the engines now," Tom suggested. Chief Engineer Rust looked skeptical, but initiated the startup sequence. The fusion chambers came online without hesitation, filling the engine room with a deep thrumming that meant healthy propulsion. Systems. The diagnostic displays showed perfect readings across all parameters. Commander Voss stared at the operational status indicators for a long moment. his scales shifting through several different colors that Tom couldn't interpret. "How did you know to listen to the machinery?" "On Earth, we call it mechanical sympathy," Tom replied. "Machines make different sounds when they're happy versus when something's bothering them. Your computers are amazing at measuring everything, but they can't feel what the machine is trying to tell you." Word of Tom's success spread through guild communication networks faster than the speed of light. Within days, requests for human mechanical assistance started pouring into Lunar base from across the galaxy. Ships that had been limping along with chronic problems for years suddenly wanted the human mechanic who could hear what was wrong with their engines. But Tom also started noticing something troubling in the messages Quill shared with him. Several prominent guild engineering councils were expressing concern about human repair methods. They used phrases like unscientific approaches and dangerous precedents and contamination of proper procedures. "Are they upset that I'm fixing their ships?" Tom asked Quill one evening while reviewing the day's repair requests. Quill's crystalline body dimmed slightly, a sign Tom had learned meant the alien was choosing his words carefully. Some members of the guild believed that mechanical problems should only be solved through systematic analysis and computer-verified procedures. They view human intuition as unpredictable. Tom thought about his grandfather's holographic message and the warning about humanity's place in the interstellar community. Eddie Riley had fought for 40 years to prove that humans deserved respect among the stars. Now it was Tom's turn to carry that legacy forward, one impossible repair at a time. But first, he had to survive the growing opposition from aliens, who preferred their technology broken rather than fixed by primitive human methods. The coded message arrived, disguised as a routine parts requisition, but Tom recognized the pattern his grandfather had taught him to watch for. 3 seemingly random equipment requests spelled out coordinates when you took the first letter of each item. Someone wanted to meet him at the abandoned mining station on Ceres. Tom told Quill he needed to personally inspect a malfunctioning asteroid harvester, which wasn't entirely a lie. The trip to Ceres took 2 days through the asteroid belt, giving him plenty of time to wonder if he was walking into a trap. Opposition to human mechanics had grown stronger since his repair of the Hammer of Stars. Several guild councils were openly questioning whether humans should be allowed to work on alien technology at all. The mining station looked dead from the outside, its solar panels dark and communication arrays silent. But Tom's ship detected life support systems running deep inside the asteroid facility. He docked at an airlock that opened automatically, suggesting someone had been monitoring his approach. Inside the station, emergency lighting guided him through corridors carved directly from the asteroid rock. The place felt ancient by space. Station standards, probably built during the early days of asteroid mining when humans were just learning to work in space. But someone had updated the life support systems with technology Tom recognized as guild standard. He found her in the Central Operations Center, a woman about his own age with short black hair and grease stains on her jumpsuit that looked exactly like the ones Tom accumulated during long repair jobs. She was hunched over a workbench, using what appeared to be a modified guild diagnostic tool to repair something Tom couldn't identify. "You must be Eddie Riley's grandson," she said without looking up from her work. "I'm Rita Santos. My grandmother was one of the first humans recruited by the guild back in the early days." Tom looked around the operations center, noting equipment and tools that seemed to blend human and alien technology in ways he'd never seen before. "What is this place?" Rita finally turned to face him, and Tom saw eyes that held the same mix of knowledge and exhaustion he'd noticed in his grandfather's. "Holographic recording. This is one of our safe houses. The guild doesn't know about it, and we'd like to keep it that way." "Our?" "The human mechanics scattered throughout guild space. We call ourselves fixers, though I suppose that's not very creative. There are about 200 of us spread across 40 different systems, keeping alien civilization running while they debate whether we should be allowed to touch their precious technology." Rita led Tom through the station, showing him workshops where human and alien technologies had been combined in ways that violated probably a dozen guild engineering protocols. In one room, a human-built combustion engine was somehow interfaced with an alien quantum computer. In another, traditional Earth metalworking tools sat next to devices that could manipulate matter at the molecular level. The thing about alien technology, Rita explained as they walked, is that it's designed by minds that think in perfectly logical patterns. Every system has redundant backups and fail-safes and diagnostic routines that check each other constantly. It's incredibly sophisticated, but it's also fragile in ways they don't understand. She stopped at a display showing guild maintenance statistics spanning the past decade. The numbers were startling. Systems with human involvement showed dramatically lower failure rates and higher efficiency ratings compared to purely alien-maintained equipment. We've been quietly making their technology better for years, Rita continued. Not just fixing problems, but improving designs in ways their computer models say should be impossible. The guild has become dependent on human mechanics, but they're too proud to admit it officially. Tom studied the data, thinking about his recent experiences with guild engineering teams. They seem to think human methods are dangerous somehow. They are dangerous from the guild's perspective. We don't follow proper procedures because proper procedures often don't work. We bypass safety systems when they're preventing necessary repairs. We make modifications that improve performance but can't be predicted by their theoretical models. Rita's expression grew serious. And lately, some guild councils want to eliminate that unpredictability by eliminating us. She showed him reports intercepted from guild communications networks. The Assembly of Minds, the ruling council that governed the entire organization, was preparing legislation to restrict human mechanics to advisory roles only. No more hands-on repairs, no more direct intervention with alien technology. Humans would be allowed to make suggestions, but actual implementation would be left to guild engineers using approved methods. It would effectively end everything your grandfather worked to build, Rita said. Humans would become consultants instead of partners, and when their over-engineered systems start failing more frequently, they'll blame us for creating dependency on primitive methods. Tom realized he was looking at a political crisis that could affect the entire galaxy. The guild's technology kept hundreds of different species connected across interstellar distances. If that technology became less reliable because human mechanics were sidelined, the consequences could be catastrophic. What can we do about it? Rita smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. That depends on how much you're willing to risk. Your grandfather's contract makes you the most visible human in the guild. You have influence that the rest of us don't. But using that influence means painting a target on yourself. She explained the fixer's plan. They'd been quietly documenting every repair and improvement made by human mechanics over the past 5 years. The data showed conclusively that human involvement made alien technology more reliable, more efficient, and more adaptable to unexpected problems. But the information was scattered across dozens of systems and hidden from guild oversight. We need someone with official status to present this evidence to the Assembly of Minds, Rita said. Someone they can't ignore or dismiss as a rogue element operating outside proper channels. Tom thought about the comfortable life he'd left behind on Earth, fixing familiar problems with familiar tools for people who appreciated honest work. That life seemed incredibly distant now, like a half-remembered dream. Instead, he was standing in an asteroid mining station, talking to a woman he'd just met about challenging the fundamental assumptions of an interstellar civilization. What happens if we fail? Then humans become footnotes in galactic history, interesting primitives, who briefly helped maintain alien technology before wiser heads prevailed. Rita's expression hardened. Your grandfather didn't spend 40 years building humanity's reputation so we could quietly fade into obsolescence. Tom made his decision the way he'd learned to approach impossible mechanical problems. Stop overthinking, trust your instincts, and commit completely to whatever solution felt right. Tell me what you need me to do." Rita's smile widened, and for a moment she looked like someone who'd been carrying a heavy burden that was finally about to be shared. "First, we need to gather the other fixers. It's time for humans to stop hiding in the shadows and start working together openly, and then we're going to show the guild what happens when human ingenuity gets organized." The distress signal reached Luna Base, while Tom was reviewing the fixers' compiled data for his upcoming presentation to the Assembly of Minds. Quill burst into his workshop without the usual polite announcement, his crystalline body flashing. Urgent red patterns. "Emergency situation, Mr. Riley. The research vessel Infinity's Edge has suffered catastrophic system failure near the Sagittarius black hole. All guild engineering protocols have failed. The ship will be destroyed in 18 hours. Tom looked up from the maintenance reports scattered across his workbench. "How many crew?" 47 beings representing 12 different species. The ship also carries prototype technology worth more than most planetary economies. The Assembly of Minds has classified this as a Code 7 crisis, the highest classification in guild emergency protocols. Tom had never heard of a Code 7 being declared during his brief time with the organization. What kind of system failure? Quill's body dimmed with what Tom had learned to recognize as uncertainty. Unknown. The ship's AI reports that all systems are functioning normally, but the vessel cannot move, cannot communicate effectively, and appears to be in a state of partial existence. Tom felt his grandfather's mechanical intuition stirring. Problems that made no sense according to alien logic often had perfectly obvious solutions from a human perspective. "I need to see it." Absolutely forbidden. The Assembly has ordered all non-essential vessels to maintain minimum safe distance. The Infinity's Edge is experimenting with quantum drive technology that could create unpredictable space-time distortions. Then how are they planning to rescue the crew? Quill's silence answered that question. The guild was prepared to write off the ship and everyone aboard, rather than risk additional losses trying to solve an impossible problem. Tom stood up, his decision already made. "Get me a ship and any volunteers willing to help." "Mr. Riley, the Assembly has specifically prohibited human involvement. They believe this situation requires systematic analysis by their best theoretical physicists, not intuitive repair methods. Their theoretical physicists have had 6 hours to solve this problem, and they're no closer to an answer than when they started." Tom began gathering tools, including several devices Rita's network had developed by combining human and alien technologies. Sometimes the universe doesn't care about theory. Within 2 hours, Tom had assembled a rescue team that would have horrified guild command structure. Rita arrived from Ceres with 3 other fixers who'd been working in nearby systems. A guild maintenance ship provided by sympathetic aliens gave them transportation, though officially it was listed as conducting routine cargo deliveries nowhere near the crisis zone. The journey to Sagittarius took 8 hours at maximum acceleration, during which Tom's team studied every scrap of available data about the Infinity's Edge. The research vessel was testing an experimental quantum drive that could theoretically allow instantaneous travel between distant points in space. According to the technical specifications, it worked by briefly shifting a ship into quantum superposition, existing in multiple locations simultaneously before collapsing back into normal space at the desired destination. "Looks like they got stuck halfway," observed Pat Wilson, one of Rita's fixers who specialized in power systems. "The ship is probably existing in quantum superposition without being able to collapse back into normal space." Rita nodded grimly. "Which means it's partially real and partially not real at the same time. No wonder their instruments can't make sense of what's happening." When they reached the crisis zone, Tom understood why the guild's systematic approach had failed. The Infinity's Edge appeared as a ghostly outline against the star field, sometimes visible and sometimes not, flickering between existence and non-existence in patterns that hurt to watch. Worse, the area around the ship seemed to bend light in impossible ways, creating visual distortions that made Tom feel dizzy. "Radiation levels are off the charts," reported Maria Chen, their navigation specialist. "Not dangerous radiation, just weird radiation, like the ship is leaking quantum uncertainty into normal space." Tom studied the ghostly vessel through their ship's viewports, trying to apply human intuition to a problem that alien science couldn't solve. The Infinity's Edge looked like a machine that had gotten confused about its own existence. All its systems were working perfectly in whatever state of reality it currently occupied, but that state wasn't compatible with the rest of the universe. "We need to get closer," Tom announced. "The guild perimeter is set at 50 kilometers for good reason," Pat warned. "We don't know what kind of quantum effects might affect our ship." "The guild perimeter is set by people who think they understand quantum physics," Tom replied. "But nobody really understands quantum physics. That's why it's called quantum physics instead of quantum engineering." They approached the Infinity's Edge slowly, monitoring their instruments for any signs that their own ship was being affected by the quantum distortions. At 10 kilometers distance, their navigation computer started reporting impossible readings. According to their instruments, they were simultaneously approaching the research vessel and moving away from it at the same time. "I think I understand the problem," Tom said suddenly. "The quantum drive is working exactly as designed. It's put the ship into superposition like it's supposed to. But something prevented the system from completing the collapse sequence." Rita leaned over his shoulder to study the readouts. "What could prevent quantum collapse?" Tom pointed to a section of the Infinity's Edge that flickered more rapidly than the rest. "Gravitational interference from the black hole. The quantum drive assumed it was operating in normal space, but the gravitational fields here are so intense they're affecting the probability calculations. It was a problem that made perfect sense from a human perspective, but would be almost impossible for alien minds to grasp. The Guild's theoretical physicists were looking for complex quantum mechanical failures, when the real issue was that their fancy technology had encountered a situation it wasn't designed to handle. "So how do we fix it?" Maria asked. Tom smiled, feeling the same confidence he'd experienced when diagnosing problems with familiar Earth machinery. "We don't fix the quantum drive. We fix the environment it's trying to operate in. The solution required every piece of modified equipment the fixers had brought with them, using their ship's tractor beam systems in ways that would have horrified Guild engineers. They began creating artificial gravitational fields around the Infinity's Edge, not to move the ship, but to create a pocket of space where the gravitational conditions matched what the quantum drive expected to find. It took 4 hours of delicate work, with Tom making constant adjustments based on how the ghostly ship responded to their interventions. Gradually, the Infinity's Edge began flickering less frantically, its outline becoming more solid and stable. "Quantum coherence is increasing," Pat reported. "Whatever you're doing is working." Finally, with a flash of light that temporarily overloaded their visual sensors, the Infinity's Edge snapped back into full existence. The research vessel hung in space looking perfectly normal, as if it had never been caught between realities. The rescue worked, but at a cost. Tom's ship had pushed its modified systems far beyond safe operating limits during the gravitational manipulation. Multiple power conduits had burned out, life support was running on backup systems, and their propulsion drive was making sounds that suggested imminent failure. But the Infinity's Edge was safe, its crew rescued from an impossible situation by humans who'd refused to accept that some problems couldn't be solved. As Guild rescue ships finally approached to provide assistance, Tom realized that his team had just demonstrated something that would change the relationship between humans and aliens forever. They'd proven that human ingenuity could solve problems that defeated the most advanced alien science. The question now was whether the assembly of minds would see this as validation of human methods or as an unacceptable challenge to their technological superiority. The Assembly of Minds convened an emergency session 3 days after the Infinity's Edge rescue, their crystalline amphitheater buzzing with debates in dozens of alien languages. Tom stood in the center of the vast chamber, feeling very small and very human, surrounded by beings whose civilizations had mastered interstellar travel before his species learned to make fire. The assembly speaker, a towering being that looked like a fusion of metal and living wood, called for order with a sound like wind through electronic chimes. We gather to address the unprecedented actions of human mechanics in violation of direct assembly orders. Thomas Riley, you will explain your defiance of established protocols. Tom looked around the amphitheater at hundreds of alien faces, most showing expressions he couldn't interpret. But he recognized skepticism in any species. These beings had built a galactic civilization based on careful planning and systematic approaches. To them, human methods probably looked like dangerous chaos. Honored Assembly, I didn't defy your protocols to cause trouble. I did it because 47 people were going to die, and I thought I could help save them. A ripple of what might have been approval passed through part of the assembly, but the speaker's expression remained stern. Your unauthorized intervention succeeded through what can only be described as luck. Primitive intuition is not a substitute for proper scientific methodology. With respect, Speaker, our methods aren't primitive. They're just different. Tom had rehearsed this moment during the long journey back to Guild headquarters. Alien technology is incredible, but it has limitations that you don't want to acknowledge. Murmurs of displeasure echoed through the chamber. The Guild took enormous pride in their technological achievements, and suggesting they had fundamental flaws was close to blasphemy. Rita stepped forward from the gallery where the other fixers sat. She'd been granted permission to speak as Tom's advocate, though several assembly members had objected to allowing any humans to address the gathering. Speaker, if I may present evidence gathered over 5 years of human participation in Guild operations. The central displays activated, showing maintenance statistics that painted a clear picture. Ships with human mechanics had 90% fewer system failures than those maintained using standard Guild procedures. Average repair times were 40% faster. Most importantly, human-maintained systems showed consistent performance improvements over their original specifications. These numbers prove that human involvement makes Guild technology more reliable, not less, Rita continued. We're not randomly hitting things with wrenches. We're identifying problems that your diagnostic systems miss and implementing solutions that work even when they violate theoretical predictions. The assembly speaker studied the data for several minutes while debates erupted throughout the chamber. Tom noticed that younger Guild members seemed more interested in the statistics, while older representatives appeared deeply disturbed by the implications. Even accepting these claims, the speaker finally said, human methods remain unpredictable and potentially dangerous. The quantum drive incident demonstrates that your species acts without regard for proper safety protocols. Tom felt his grandfather's stubborn streak asserting itself. Speaker, your safety protocols almost let 47 people die because they prevented anyone from trying an unconventional solution. Sometimes following the rules exactly is the most dangerous thing you can do. Commander Voss rose from his seat in the military section. The reptilian officer had been one of Tom's harshest critics after the Hammer of Stars repair, but something in his expression had changed. Speaker, I request permission to address the assembly. Granted, Commander. Voss moved to the central floor, his scales shifting through colors that Tom had learned indicated deep thought. 3 months ago, I believed human mechanical methods were dangerous contamination of proper Guild procedures. The human mechanics repair of my ship succeeded, but I attributed this to luck rather than skill. The commander paused, looking directly at Tom. However, subsequent observation has revealed that human modifications to my ship's systems have improved performance beyond original specifications. My engineering staff now reports that many previously chronic problems have disappeared entirely. The Hammer of Stars operates more efficiently than it did when first commissioned. This testimony seemed to surprise many assembly members, judging by the increase in alien discussions throughout the chamber. Commander Voss had a reputation for rigid adherence to military protocols, making his support for human methods particularly significant. Furthermore, Voss continued, during the recent crisis, human mechanics succeeded in resolving a situation that our best theoretical physicists declared impossible. Their methods may appear unconventional, but their results speak clearly. The debate continued for hours, with assembly members arguing about risk assessment, technological purity, and the fundamental nature of proper engineering practices. Tom noticed that support seemed to be building among younger representatives and those from species that had worked directly with human mechanics. Finally, the speaker called for a formal vote on the proposed restriction of human involvement in guild operations. Tom held his breath as the voting displays activated throughout the amphitheater. The final tally appeared on the central screen. 342 votes against restrictions, 287 votes in favor. The margin was smaller than Tom had hoped, but it was enough. The Assembly has decided to maintain current human participation levels in guild operations, the speaker announced. However, this decision comes with conditions. Human mechanics will be formally integrated into guild engineering protocols rather than operating as independent contractors. Rita looked puzzled. What does that mean exactly? It means, the speaker explained, that the Assembly recognizes the value of human mechanical intuition as a complement to systematic engineering approaches. We propose the establishment of the Hybrid Compact, formally pairing human fixers with guild engineering teams on all major projects. Tom felt a surge of excitement mixed with disbelief. This was more than he'd dared hope for when he first stood before the Assembly. The Compact will establish training programs to help guild engineers understand human diagnostic methods, while human mechanics will receive formal education in guild theoretical principles, the speaker continued. Both approaches have proven valuable. Logic suggests that combining them will produce superior results. Over the following weeks, Tom found himself busier than he'd ever imagined possible. The Hybrid Compact required establishing new protocols, training procedures, and communication systems that could bridge the gap between human intuition and alien precision. Rita moved her operations to Lunar base, bringing several other senior fixers to help coordinate the integration process. The first major test came when the Guild's flagship Aurora of Knowledge suffered engine failure during a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim. The ship carried ambassadors from 20 different species, making quick repairs essential to prevent a political crisis. Tom's new partner was Chief Engineer Flux, a being whose silver metallic body contained what appeared to be flowing liquid circuits. Flux represented everything Tom had initially found intimidating about alien technology, perfectly logical, methodical, and convinced that every problem had a single correct solution discoverable through systematic analysis. All diagnostic procedures indicate normal engine function, Flux reported, as they examined the massive propulsion systems. Yet the drives refused to generate sufficient thrust for interstellar travel. Tom walked around the engines, listening to sounds that Flux's sophisticated sensors couldn't detect. The machinery hummed with power, but something felt wrong in a way he couldn't immediately identify. Your diagnostics are checking individual components, Tom said after 20 minutes of examination. But what about the relationships between components? Sometimes systems can work perfectly in isolation, but fail when they have to work together. Flux's liquid circuits swirled faster, a sign of intense computation. Explain this concept of component relationships. Tom found himself teaching alien engineering concepts that humans took for granted. He showed Flux how mechanical systems developed personalities over time, how components that worked together for years learned to compensate for each other's minor irregularities. The Aurora's engines had been recently overhauled with new parts that were technically superior to the old ones, but the system hadn't had time to develop the subtle synchronization that made everything work smoothly. The solution is not to replace anything, Tom explained. We need to help the new components learn to work with the existing systems. What followed was the strangest repair job of Tom's career. Instead of fixing broken parts, he and Flux spent 2 days fine-tuning perfectly functional components to work together more harmoniously. They adjusted timing sequences, modified power distribution patterns, and made dozens of tiny changes that individually meant nothing but collectively transformed the engine performance. When the Aurora's engines came back online, they operated more efficiently than they had in years. The diplomatic mission continued successfully, and word of the hybrid repair approach spread throughout Guild space. Months passed as the compact expanded across Guild operations. Tom found himself traveling between star systems, working with alien engineers who gradually learned to appreciate human mechanical intuition while teaching him theoretical concepts that expanded his understanding of how technology really worked. The breakthrough moment came during a routine maintenance check at Lunar Base. Tom was examining his grandfather's old workshop when he discovered a hidden compartment containing Eddie Riley's personal journal. The final entry was dated just days before his death. Tommy will face challenges I never had to deal with. The Guild is changing, becoming more rigid and fearful of new ideas. But humans have something special that no amount of alien technology can replace. We don't just fix machines, we understand them. We know that technology isn't about perfection, it's about solving problems for real people in the real universe. If he can remember that, he'll do fine. Tom closed the journal and looked out at Earth hanging in the lunar sky. His grandfather had spent 40 years proving that humans deserved a place among the stars. Now Tom was helping to build a future where human intuition and alien precision worked together to solve problems neither could handle alone. A communication alert interrupted his thoughts. Another emergency repair request was coming in from the Outer Rim, this time involving a space station with life support failures. Tom smiled as he gathered his tools. There was work to do, and for the first time since inheriting his grandfather's impossible legacy, he felt like he truly understood what it meant to be humanity's representative among the stars. The hybrid compact wasn't just about fixing alien technology. It was about proving that the universe was big enough for many different approaches to problem solving, and that sometimes the most advanced solutions came from the most unexpected combinations of knowledge and intuition. As his shuttle launched toward the latest crisis, Tom realized that his small-town garage had prepared him for this better than any formal education could have. After all, the fundamental challenge was the same, whether you were fixing a broken transmission or a failing space station. Listen to what the machine is trying to tell you, figure out what it really needs, and don't stop working until you make it right. The stars were full of broken things waiting to be fixed, and humans were finally being recognized as equal partners in keeping the galaxy running.